Greetings, Unity, Unit 522 here, and I hope all of you had a very pleasant weekend. Before getting into the stories, I would like to give a strong trigger warning. This video contains accounts of being bound and gagged, sexual molestation, and physical abuse. Some of these stories might be too disturbing for some, and if you get upset by such things, I recommend that you watch a different video. You have been warned. So if you think you can handle it, here's 3 true kidnapping stories. I was 14 when this happened. For personal reasons, I'm not going to reveal my name. All I'm saying is that I'm from Notting Hill, London. It was May. I was home alone and my parents were at work. I got up that day and got dressed and went downstairs. I was starting school at 9:30, so after watching some TV and eating my breakfast, I decided it was time to leave. I left my home at 9 a.m. and started the 10-minute walk to my school. I went down the street, past the corner shop, and through a small alley. I take this route every day without any problem. So I was halfway down the alley when a gloved hand quickly covered my mouth and the other grabbed my waist. Dropping my school bag to the ground, I began kicking and screaming as I was dragged backwards into someone's house. I was tackled to the ground by a black man, while another man who was white tied my wrists behind my back. I was placed in a chair, and the black man tied my ankles and thighs to the chair. My upper body was also fastened to the chair as well. I began to protest, pleading with them, as the white man, who was around 5'9" with blonde shaggy hair and was very muscular, got out a roll of thick duct tape. He ripped off a few pieces, and then the black man stuffed a sweaty sock into my mouth. Then the tape literally covered my entire lower head. I began to struggle as they both sat in front of me, discussing where I was going to be kept. It was decided that I would stay upstairs on a bed. I was unfastened from the chair and carried upstairs and dumped on a bed where I was hogtied. I lay there all night, crying silently. The next day the white man returned and promised to remove my gag if I was quiet. As soon as the gag came off, I screamed. He quickly and tightly clasped his hand over my mouth while he searched for another suitable gag. Then an old rag was stuffed into my mouth and secured with a rugby sock. I was then stripped down to my boxers and then knocked unconscious. The next day, I was carried over the black man's shoulder downstairs and into the trunk of a car. I was driven back to my house and was left bound on the doorstep. My parents discovered me and called the police, but the kidnappers were never found. The reason for the kidnapping was never known. The police suspect it was for human trafficking, and they both became nervous and returned me in fear of being caught. I was 17 when I was kidnapped. I was walking through the park with my best friend David. It was getting dark, and he said that he had to go home and asked if I wanted him to walk me home first. I told him that I was going to walk through the park a little bit more, and then we parted ways. I had always gone to that park and thought nothing would happen if I spent just 10 more minutes walking. It was a pretty isolated park, and not too many people would be there this time of day. I was walking out of the park when I heard a noise, rustling in some bushes behind me. I assumed it was a rabbit or something, since I had frequently seen rabbits in the park. I kept walking and was suddenly grabbed from behind. A man's arms wrapped around me and a hand was clasped over my mouth, muffling my screams. He dragged me to this dirty silver car and quickly shoved me in the back seat. He put me on my stomach and forcefully took off my sweater while I fought and struggled. I felt him wrap duct tape around my wrists behind my back, and he yanked my hair back and whispered in my ear that if I kept screaming, he would kill me. He took off my jeans and wrapped tape around my ankles and just above my knees. I was still screaming and struggling. I tried kicking him with my feet bound, but it didn't work.
"Shut the fuck up, bitch,"
He yelled at me before stuffing a huge cloth in my mouth and placing several strips of duct tape over it. He cut off my shirt, leaving me in only my bra and underwear. He started touching me, and I could feel his hands all over me. I was crying and still trying to scream through the gag. He cupped my breasts and began kissing my face and stomach. He stopped and said it was time to go home. He kissed my forehead and pulled me out of the car. He hoisted me over his shoulder and carried me to the trunk and threw me in. I remember getting to his house and him tying me to a bed. My wrists and ankles were tied to the bedpost with rope. He took the cloth out of my mouth, but instead wrapped duct tape around my head and over my mouth as a gag. He cut off my bra and underwear, leaving me completely naked. He raped me. I was with him, held hostage for almost a year. He never dressed me, and I spent the entire time naked. He kept me in the basement and had me tied up for most of the time. Sometimes he would tie me up really tight and have me sleep with him in his bed. We would both be naked. He had a stripper pole in his basement, and he would invite his friends over and make me dance on the pole for them. He liked to spank me a lot and would often tie me up, put me over his lap, and spank me. He touched me a lot and cupped my breasts many times, feeling and groping them. I was almost always gagged, with many different gags. He raped me a few times, but he claimed he always wore a condom because he said he didn't want to deal with a kid if he got me pregnant. Christmas passed, and he put me under a tree and tied me down with red and green rope with a big red bow on top of my head. He said that I was his Christmas present. I remember wanting to die. I tried to escape, but he kept me tied up so well that it was useless. One day I remember being on the living room floor with my hands tied tightly behind my back. My elbows were also bounded together. My left ankle was tied to my left thigh, and my right ankle was tied to my right thigh. I was fully naked and had a ball gag in my mouth. My kidnapper came over to me and spread my tied legs open. He pulled down his pants and was about to rape me again when several police and FBI agents came through the door and tackled him to the ground and arrested him. I was taken to the hospital where my family met me. I found out that I was there for almost a year. I was extremely thankful and felt truly blessed to be alive. I was glad that I had not given up hope and was so happy to be back with my family. As soon as I saw them, I burst into tears. I was 20 years old, and it was my third year of college. It was spring break, and I went to San Diego with my roommates and a few other of my friends. It was our third day there, and I decided that I would go get some ice cream around 7:30 p.m. My friends stayed behind in the hotel, so it was just me. I decided to take a quick shortcut through an alley. Just as I was almost out of the alleyway, I was passing this seemingly abandoned van. 4 men jumped out of the back of the van, grabbed me, and pulled me in. I screamed as loud as I could, but they pulled me into the back of the van too quickly. One of them then turned me onto my stomach and pulled my hands back. He straddled me, pinning down my arms. He yanked my head back and stuffed a cloth into my mouth. Another one of the men gave him a large roll of duct tape, and the man on top of me started wrapping the duct tape tightly around my head. I could feel one of the other men wrapping the tape around my ankles and thighs. They finished my gag and wrapped more tape around my wrists. They turned me onto my back and started to feel my legs and breasts through my shirt. One of the men slapped my thighs, and another would lick and kiss my face. 2 of the men climbed into the front seat and started to drive. The other 2 men stayed in the back, touching, licking, and kissing me, and slapping my thighs because I was wearing short jean shorts. I cried for the entire ride. The men looked to be in their 30s or early 40s. They scared me, and I knew that they would rape me. When the van stopped, the men in front opened the back doors to the van. All of them were out, and one in a green shirt pulled me out by my ankles and hoisted me over his shoulder, slapping me on the rear. I noticed that we were in a desert mountain type area. There were no other houses or people. They carried me inside and threw me on the couch. A man in a blue shirt grabbed another roll of duct tape and looked at me. "Come on, sweetie. You know you love this. I can't wait to get that shirt off later." He started wrapping tape around my legs in many places. Then he did my arms. When he was done, the man with the green shirt came over to me and sat me up, then straddled me. "I wonder what we have under here to entertain us," he said. He grabbed my shirt and ripped it open, then tore it off completely, throwing it to the ground. He cupped my breasts. Another man in a brown shirt then picked me up and hoisted me over his shoulder. He carried me down to the basement. There was a mattress in the corner, and he set me down on it. He whispered in my ear that he would be back later for some fun. He licked my breasts and then left. I was left down there in the basement for hours, and I remember crying on the dirty mattress, shivering and yelling for help into my tight gag. A man in a black shirt came down with the man in the green shirt. They cut off my shorts, bra, and underwear. They played around with me for hours, fondling my breasts and slapping my ass. When they were done, they laid me on my back. And then the one in the black shirt straddled me. "Okay, I can't take it anymore. I need to kiss her sweet lips. When I take this gag off, if you scream, I will be forced to rape you. Do you understand, sweetheart?" he asked. I sniffled back my tears and nodded. He unwrapped all the tape, and I spat out my cloth. He felt my lips with his fingers, and then kissed them. I could feel his tongue in my mouth, and I started to cry heavily again. He stopped, and then I started to struggle and thrash around wildly, and screamed, "Help me! Somebody! Anybody! Please help me!" He pulled me into his chest and clapped his hands over my mouth. "Shut up, you stupid bitch!" I kept yelling and struggling to undo my binds. He quickly grabbed more tape and wrapped literally the entire roll around my mouth and eyes. The tightness of the tape around my body was unbearable. I cried as I was hoisted over his shoulder again and carried upstairs. He yelled, "We have to get rid of this stupid bitch now. She's more trouble than she's worth." I thrashed in his arms and screamed and cried and cursed into my gag. "But she has such a hot ass," one said right before he slapped my rear a few times. "And her boobs are perfect." The man cupped and fondled my breasts. "No way, she's gotta go." Everyone agreed, and I was put back into the van. The two from the back of the van before were back there again, and again they kissed, licked and slapped me. I cried and screamed and struggled the whole ride. I then heard sirens and felt the van pull over a few minutes later. I heard the voice of a police officer, and I screamed for help. The back doors to the van were opened, and I was pulled out. The tape was removed from my face, and I was taken to the hospital to have the rest of the tape from my body removed. I remembered this event like it happened yesterday, and I know that one day my kidnappers will get out of prison, but I'm truly blessed to have gotten out of this alive. Hey guys, Unit 522 here, and I want to thank you very much for watching my video. I would appreciate it very much if you would share, like, and comment. And if you're new to this channel, become one with the Unity by hitting the subscribe button. If you have a scary story or experience that you want featured on this channel, you can always send it to my email or post it on the Free Horror Stories subreddit. The links for those can be found in the description below. If you would like to help out this channel even more, consider a PayPal donation. And for more updates, be sure to follow me on Twitter. There's nothing wrong with a little darkness in your life, as long as you never forget, there's always a reason to be afraid.